Play with any of the nice wines here. That's the only sad part.
Is Portugal on the map for you in crypto terms?
I used to do the whole European tour. So you'd go and do Germany and Switzerland, and then go to France, and then go down to Spain and Portugal, and go up to the UK, and sometimes Italy. But the community here has grown tremendously over the last 3 years. So it's a new hub.
It's definitely a new hub for you. There's actually also, because Portugal's been quite crypto friendly in regulation terms and taxation terms. A lot of people have taken advantage of that.
You got the golden visa program, no big taxes. Europe in general is starting to embrace crypto. From the regulatory side, MiCA just got pushed through, and they're starting to standardize regulations and talk about asset classification and tax policy and these things. The UK is the odd man out right now. They're trying to figure out their own way, but it's ahead of the US in terms of that. And there's a lot of great startups in the Web3 space that are in Germany and other places, and they're starting to get a bit more diversified throughout Europe.
Is there anything in particular you're particularly passionate about in the crypto space? Obviously, apart from your own projects.
Well, there's a lot of stuff in crypto right now. There's a lot of cool stuff on the horizon. So we're right in the middle of the third generation of cryptocurrency. So the first generation was decentralization. That's what Bitcoin brought us, and it's the winner. The second was smart contracts or programmability, and that's what Ethereum brought us. And the third generation is scalability, interoperability, and governance. And there's tons of protocols that are in this space. You have Algorand and Near, and you have Tezos and Cardano and so forth. And we're all kind of battling it out. And eventually some winners will occur. But on the horizon, we looked at things like the fourth generation, and there you have multi-resource consensus, identity built into the system, a lot of post-quantum stuff. So there's an endless river of cool things that we pay attention to, both on the academic side, because we write research papers, we've written over 150, and then on the engineering side as well, and then on the product side for adoption. But it's just crazy the scale of things. 300 million cryptocurrency users worldwide now. It went from 0 to 300 million in 13 years.
I think that it's interesting, isn't it, to think, when people say to me, crypto's over, it's not going to go anywhere, I just say, how many people were on the internet in around 1998, 1999, and nobody never knows, and I said it was about 200-300 million. And then I say, how many people have wallets? And they say, oh, it's about 200-300 million. And then they go like, oh, so it's 1999 in Web3 in a way.
Actually, Elon buying Twitter
still a long way to go.
Is probably going to bring crypto to 200 million people there. He has every intention of some form of crypto integration. I think that's why Binance put $500 million in. And he's obviously a fan of Dogecoin, and it's doing quite well, because there's a belief that there's going to be some form of integration in the horizon. This is old business for him. He had X.com back in the 90s.
I'm glad you mentioned Dogecoin, because Cardano has been talking about creating on-ramps for Dogecoin. What's your latest thinking about that subject?
So we're now exiting an adversarial age where there's tons of layer ones and they all hate each other and throw hand grenades at each other. And we're entering a more collaborative age where people started trying to get this technology to work together, so interoperability. So part of that is, how do you figure out how to get old and new blockchains alike to talk to each other, so they can move users, value, information, metadata, whatever it is, in a way kind of like we have Wi-Fi or Bluetooth, where you just have ubiquitous interoperability. So it'd be a lot of fun to see if we could find a way to make Doge a sidechain of Cardano, or at least build a bridge there, especially if the intention for Twitter is an integration there. Because the technology of Doge is based on Bitcoin, and it can't scale with 200 million users. They just simply could not do a large-scale deployment on a network like that. So they're going to need some overlay to assist them and do that. So at some point, someone will get that deal. So I don't have any information on it, but if I had to guess, I think that's what Binance is kind of pushing for.
I was going to basically ask you, do you have any information on what Musk is going to do in Twitter and crypto?
Yeah, you put $500 million into it. That's a pretty big check size if it's just a passive investment. I think there's every intention to be part of the crypto conversation. You can either be part on the infrastructure side, the liquidity side, as a regulated financial actor. There's a litany of things you can do. And for a platform as large and pervasive as Twitter, you need all of the above. You need identity solutions like DIDs, you need wallet solutions, you need exchanges, you algorithms to curate information, use smart contract capabilities. NFTs can play a major role because you can represent an account or information as an NFT. But this is a big thing in journalism that's going to be a huge problem within 24 months. If you look at AI and the rate of progress with deepfakes, eventually we're going to cross an inflection point where it's quite common with consumer level AI to create a deepfake that's indistinguishable from a normal video or picture. And then you can imagine people creating fake news. So you need to bind the creation of information with some sort of proof of authenticity and origin of it. And NFT is actually a perfect aspect for that. And Twitter could bring that to the market.
So you think NFTs are going to be this sort of verification kind of methodology? What do you think about, just a slight segue, what do you think about all this stuff about the $8 verification? You think that's just gaslighting?
No, I think it's a great idea because if you pulled it off, as the platform grows, that premium model could end up being a multi-billion-dollar revenue line, which diminishes the role advertisers have on the platform because they can start saying, Twitter, you're not the product. These social media platforms, you're the product. There's a great book called Surveillance Capitalism that kind of talks about this, and everybody knows that when they use Facebook and Twitter and these other things, at the end of the rainbow, their data is going to be harvested and used for facilitating marketing or other purposes. And so when you have a premium verification line, you now have a direct relationship with your customer. And that means that you don't have to sell ads, which means he doesn't have to be beholden to any external force.
Okay, well, I guess that we could go down that line, but let's talk about Cardano. So there's been the so-called crypto winter now we're in, so-called. What's your take on things, where things are right now? Let's be honest, Cardano's prices have crashed. What's your feeling right now about the subject?
Well, everything's crashed. The stock market's down $9 trillion. That's a big number. We have like 8% annualized inflation. If you believe the CPI, it's probably more like 15-20%. There's boom and bear markets, and I've been in Bitcoin since before it was $1, and now look where it's at. So I don't tend to look at the micro. What I tend to look at is more meaningful metrics and statistics. In particular, you look at the use of utilities. You look at projects. There's over 100 that have launched, 1,000 in the way. We're number 3 for NFT volume right now, 100 million plus in volume per month. We have 6 million assets that have been issued on Cardano, and year by year, month by month, every metric from social metrics like Twitter traffic, Reddit traffic, Telegram traffic, they're growing quite considerably. So the overall size and scale of the platform is growing. Whether the price goes up and down, Amazon plummeted in 2000, took till 2011 to them to recover. But they're obviously a very different company in that respect. So you have to focus on the long-term use utility in the community and say, is it healthy and sustainable? And the answer is yes. We've grown more this year than we did in 2021, even though 2021 was the biggest bull market of all time.
How many people here own Cardano? A bunch of people.
Not a small community. Ghost chain, right?
Keep your hand up if you're happy. Roughly. Oh, you've still got some fans. You've also talked about, in recent sort of press, you've talked about the developer tools. Who here's developing on blockchain? Engineering. Yeah. So there's still, there's still a lot to go. Tell us, Ethereum has always really had the kind of, the biggest developer community. How are you planning to grow your developer community?
Well, first off, there's 25.4 million developers worldwide. There's only probably about 80 to 120,000 Solidity developers. So this myth that Ethereum has the network effect, they have the network effect within a bubble. It's a small pond relative to the ocean of all developers. And the big developers have yet to come on board. And there's plenty of things being built outside of the Ethereum ecosystem than inside the Ethereum ecosystem. So it's an early day situation. So what we tend to look for is we say, okay, do we have the ability to absorb the development model of multiple blockchains? With sidechains we do, and that's something we're exploring next year. So you have EVM compatibility, other ecosystems will come. And so developers who are already acclimated there, they can just roll over and use it. Just like when you write Java code, you can write it for a desktop application, or you can write it for an Android application. Or JavaScript, you can write it for the browser or the desktop or the iPhone, or et cetera, et cetera. Then what's nice about Plutus is that the core language of Cardano is it was designed for a very specific type of developer application. So high assurance applications, so things where there's billions of dollars at stake, they're mission critical, and if shit goes wrong, people die or they lose money. Think of like the Boeing 737 MAX. Bad software kills people. So what we wanted to do is have a strong verified core and then a big constellation of sidechains that bring new capabilities to the platform. And then you can absorb developers at a pretty good rate. And we've already shown that with good stuff inside the core, you can get verticals quickly. Like for example, by having the best native asset standard for issued tokens on Cardano, we were able to grow exponentially in the NFT space. It's so simple to issue and airdrop NFTs on Cardano. That's why our volume is so high. 6 million have been issued. We didn't plan that. There was no bureau of NFTs in Cardano, and we're like, boy, we have to go conquer these guys. The community just did it themselves. In fact, they invited me to a conference, and I thought maybe like 200 people would show up. Community-led conference, 3,000 people were there, and we had 144 projects. I was just blown away by the evangelism. It was impossible to walk around the exhibition area because everybody wanted a picture. And that's fun. So that's really where it's at. You have to have a multi-computation model where you adopt different paradigms, and an easy way to bring that in. You have to honor the legacy, not just the solidity, but the legacy, so the other 25 million developers. And then you have to have verticals where you're very good at things. Like next year, Marlowe comes. It's going to be super easy to write financial contracts that are provably secure. It's super important for the flow of money, for lending, for DeFi. These things, if you screw up those contracts, you lose all your money. And it's super important also to focus on growth areas like GameFi, Metaverse, NFTs, and have competitive USP. So, I'm pretty comfortable with where we're at. I, of course, would like better development experience and better documentation and everything to be perfect. But remember, this is a new programming model. It just came out last year. Usually when you create a new programming language, it takes about 3 to 5 years for it to really get comfortable. And the fact that we've been able to accomplish so much in under a year is pretty impressive.
Cardano is now the third largest NFT protocol by trading volume, according to some research from DappRadar. What's your thinking about where NFTs space can go from here?
So NFTs are super useful when you start talking about representations of assets that have very particular value to a very particular domain. For example, you own a house or a car or a boat. The deed for that thing can be represented as an NFT. Your medical records can be represented as an NFT. Supply chains, items in a supply chain, they can be represented as an NFT. So we have an ESG thing where we want to track all the carbon in the world. It's going to be a $150 trillion overhaul to bring in COP26. Blockchain NFTs are going to probably play a significant role there. We already mentioned the provenance of content. So who created the video and the authentication certificate for it, so for deepfakes, these types of things. But he also combined intellectual property to NFTs, patents, the IP for music. This is why so many musicians have entered the space, because they don't have a direct relationship with their audience and a direct licensing scheme. So it goes far beyond like Bored Apes and Space Bugs and Ape Society and all these types of things. It goes much more into, I have a unique thing that I need to represent in a unique way, and I need to have portability and economic agency with it, and the ability to put metadata on it, so that we can talk about the story of who owned it, these types of things. And it runs complementary to the more fungible things, which are like cryptocurrencies or crypto securities or these types of things.
You mentioned earlier you're interested in the DeFi space. I know you're also an investor as well. What sort of, where are you thinking about the DeFi space, where that's headed right now, and what do you think about the health of that ecosystem?
So we started a $25 million fund, so it's a small one, called C Fund. And basically it invested in Cardano DeFi because we wanted to get a better understanding of these things. And it's a pretty nice portfolio, maybe 20, 30 companies. And they range from DEXs to Oracles to stablecoins and these types, all the usual suspects. But then we also looked a lot into the analytics and reporting. We looked a lot into the data layer, identity layer, these types of things. So what's cool about it is that if you get involved early enough, you can kind of watch them grow and evolve, and it's more than a passive investment relationship, it's a partnership where you can use them for customer feedback to help you evolve your platform. So for example, Hydra is a state channel technology that we've been building all this year. for Cardano to help scale dApps on Cardano. And we got to a point where we said we'd like Cardano developers to start integrating Hydra as a case study, but we just went to the CFON portfolio because we already had the relationship. We called them up and said, hey, would you like to be a pioneer and actually work with us on this? They said, sure, of course. You know, Sunday Swap is doing that. Obsidian is doing that with Load Wallet. But there's a litany of people using that. So it's nice in this space because you go beyond a passive role and you exist more in a role of a partner. And you can kind of co-evolve, co-build with them. So you wear multiple hats.
A lot of people, I could ask you a question like, what are you most excited about, etc. What are you most down on? What do you think people should stop talking about or move away from?
Well, I think the most damaging thing in the industry is still maximalism, especially Bitcoin maximalism. It's incredibly dismaying to have a group of people who think that all innovation stopped January 3rd of 2009, and everything beyond that is a scam, and everybody who touches that is an evil person who needs to be put in jail. You know, I did a lot of regulatory work this year. I spoke before Congress, the House Advocate Committee. We spoke to dozens of congressmen and senators, had dinner with a few of them, talked to the CFTC, we talked to a lot of agencies. And what I found out was that there were Bitcoin maximalists not only getting involved in the conversation, but they were actively lobbying Congress to ban everything but Bitcoin. You know, make everything a security or make everything illegal. And it was just incredibly frustrating to spend. You know, first it's intellectually dishonest, and then second, it accomplishes nothing. You know, this is one industry, one ecosystem, and we all have to live together, work together. We, of course, over Twitter can, you know, mock people and say things that sometimes are regrettable. But at the end of the rainbow, if a person called me in the space that's an open source protocol and they said, we'd like to collaborate, and it made sense that there's mutual value, I'd never say no. The Polkadot business is just right down the hot thing. There's plenty of people here, and if they have something they're working on that we're working on, it makes perfect sense to collaborate. Maximalism makes it impossible to collaborate. Because what you've done is said, my competitor is not somebody I disagree with. My competitor is a criminal. My competitor is evil. My competitor should be in jail. Oh, by the way, let's collaborate. The community can't do it. And so I've been down on that for a long time, and I wish it would go away. And it just seems to keep rearing its ugly head.
You know, that's a good point, and we're out of time, the clock says, and you've made a great point. Charles, it's been great talking to you. Thanks very much for coming to Websummit, and see you again.
Thank you so much.